Welcome back to the channel, folks. Nate here with Murray Farm and Ranch, coming to you on a absolutely gorgeous November day here in Oklahoma. The sun is shining. There is very little wind today, and it is absolutely beautiful. You could not ask for a better November day in Oklahoma. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about our pastures. You can see behind me back here, got a little bit of green growing, which is nice for November. Over here behind me, got another green pasture. You know, the longer you can keep your cows on grass, the less you got to feed them. And that's just adding some real benefit to your bottom line. And I want to talk to you guys about one of the tools that we use here to do that, and that is with this old grain drill. I want to detail this grain drill for you, talk to you a little bit about it, you know, its shortcomings, it's why we use it, and you know, you might want to keep your eyes open for one yourself. All right, guys, so what we're talking about today is this right here. This is a John Deere made in the USA Model B grain drill. So, get you a little look at it, kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So this has a seed box right here. Some of these will have a secondary box. There's a like a small grass box that you can put on, or that some of them have. Mine does not have that. This one just has the two large boxes. And these are primarily used to plant cover crops. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. But this thing has been an absolute awesome piece of equipment for Murray Farm and Ranch. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what to look for if you're going to buy one, and some things to consider before you get one. Like I said, this thing is a old grain drill. These were produced in the 1960s. And they're kind of one of the originals. And there's still a lot of these out there. There's still a lot of these that can be found. And you can find these things for, you know, as cheap as, you know, sometimes $500-600. Really nicely maintained ones may cost you, you know, $1,500. But they have some, there's some things about them that are just awesome. And I want to go over a couple of those things. And I want to also talk to you about what you want to look for when you're buying one. Because there's a couple of things that if you find it, you probably don't want to mess with it. Because it may be more trouble than it's worth. But so this grain drill, it was produced back in the 1960s. It has, there's 16 downspouts and that are letting grain out. And they're on an 8-inch spacing. So basically you're getting 16 seeds, you know, you're getting 16 little mini rows on an 8-inch spacing, which is great for all kinds of things, you know, cereal grains, soybeans, cowpeas, all that kind of stuff. You can run all that through this machine. Now, one of the things that you gotta that you want to understand about this thing is how you do that, how you space, or how you know how much to put down. And most of these will have a chart right here on the inside of one of your seed boxes that'll kind of detail your chart or your application rates. So here's a better look at our application rates. So for example, you know, you look at wheat here. And so wheat, if you want to put down 18 pounds per acre, you're gonna do 4 notches. Or like, you know, what's probably more realistic is if you want to do like say 60 to 80 pounds, you'd do either 12 to 16. Maybe you want to go right in the middle and you know, somewhere around 70 pounds per acre. So you adjust based on this thing right here. So you know, this would be all the way to the far right is closed, And then, so inside of here, you can see this. There's this thing, there's these gates. And so if you open it up, you can see it moving. And that's going to be what adjusts your the amount of seed that is coming out. Now, one of the things you want to consider before buying this thing, the first off is going to be how big it is. So these things are not like little toy pieces of equipment. They're pretty wide, and they're actually, so if we start from the outside of the tire, you're actually looking at a distance of 13, you're looking at a distance of 13 feet. And so from tire to tire, you're 13 feet, which means that you got to have some gates big enough to put these things through. Otherwise, you got to put them on a trailer, haul them through, unload them, and so forth, and that's a lot of trouble. And so if you've got gates that are narrower than probably 14 feet, this piece of equipment is probably not for you. Another thing that you want to consider is, whether it's mechanically sound. And so when you're looking at these things, there's a couple of things that are real important. One is these gears. If your gears are missing, so this thing is a ground-driven machine. So when the wheel turns, it's going to turn this drive shaft. And when this gear touches these gears, it's going to turn this drive shaft, which is going to drop seed down the spouts in line of your discs, and then it's going to be covered up by your chains. And so it's really important that your gears don't have any missing teeth and that they're well maintained. So I would highly recommend that you check your gears before making a purchase. Number two, inside of this is a chain, and that chain is also what's going to help to drive your drive shaft. So this chain needs to be in good condition. Another thing I would consider would be your discs. So your disc, you want them to have just a little bit of play in them, just a little bit. And these discs, if your disc is 5 feet or 5 inches wide, you're not going to be getting a very good cut on the ground. And so you want to make sure that your discs are the height that they're supposed to be. My discs are about 14 inches wide, and so you want to make sure that you're purchasing a machine that's got discs that are pretty close to that. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy a new disc to put on it, and that can get kind of expensive in a hurry. So a couple of things to consider. You want to make sure that your gears are intact, because these things are getting harder and harder to find, and they're also not easy to replace. You got to do a lot of mechanicking to get them off, and so you want to make sure that you've got your gears in place. Number two, you want to make sure that your discs are not completely worn. And then these downspouts and funnels, so you can kind of see that this is what's going to allow your seed to drop down into the line of the discs and be covered up. If you're missing these downspouts and funnels, these are going to have to be replaced. And so you either need to have a good source to get them, or you want to make sure that they're present when you buy it. Another thing I would consider is your seed boxes. You can find these things where they're completely rusted out. If you look at mine, it's really nice and clean. The auger is still here. A lot of these things are missing the auger. And so you want to make sure and look for a machine that's got good, solid, sturdy seed boxes that aren't rusted out. Otherwise, you're going to be you're going to be losing seed and trying to patch the boxes, find new boxes and so forth. So I don't recommend that. All right, guys, so say now I've sold you on getting an old Model B grain drill, and now you want to know how to maintain it. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I would recommend. Number one is, after you get done using your grain drill, take a shop vac or something and get all the leftover seed. Everything that's down in these little holes, everything that is down in this seed box, I would suck it out. Because what you're looking at, that stuff is going to get compacted, it's going to get hard, and it's going to mess up your gates so that you're not able to move your gates like you're supposed to. So I would definitely recommend that. The next things that you're going to want to do is maintain the chain and your grease, your drives. Now right here on the side of this where your chain is, there's this little tab. Your chain is right there, and you can pour gear lubricant directly into this little hole, and it's going to sort of kind of go over this chain and lubricate that chain. I would recommend that you do that before you use it and after you use it. And then you're going to have these grease certs. You know, they're going to be all over the place. You know, you got a grease cert here, you got, you know, one right there. You got one down there. You're going to have a bunch of different grease fittings right here. And you're going to want to keep those greased up, because if you get locked up and you have a problem and you break teeth off of your gears, well, now you've got a real problem. Now you got a machine that's probably going to cost you some money to fix and a lot of time. And so I would recommend, for maintenance, put oil in this before and after use. I would use a gear lubricant. Make sure and grease your inserts here. And then when you're done, take a shop vac and get all this stuff out of here. All that stuff down in those holes. Otherwise, the next time you break this thing out, you're going to have to do some work to get it ready to run. Alright guys, so I don't know if you can see this or not, but I've got mine loaded up with some rye grass. And so I'm going to come over to my little chart, and for rye, I want to plant about, we're going to say 70 pounds an acre. And so on based on my little chart right here, mark 28 is going to give me 67 pounds per acre. So I'm going to move my little lever here to mark 28, and I'm going to put down 67 pounds an acre of cereal ryegrass. I'm going to put that directly over some ground that I have already grazed, and you know, it's only a couple of inches tall of grass. And so I'm not gonna till it. I'm just gonna put it down, and hopefully I get a little bit of moisture on it, and I'll bet you anything this ryegrass will pop right up. A little detail of what the Model B is all about. Now you might ask, Nate, why in the world would you buy a 60-year-old piece of machinery as opposed to something newer? The main deal is cost. So there's a couple of different ways to get seed in the ground. You've got your conventional tillage, which is maybe a big disc harrow, where you go in and you till up all the ground, and you smooth it out, and then you come back and you put seed over the top of it. And that's a good system, except for it does a lot of damage to the topsoil. You're turning that topsoil over, and there's more and more evidence that says that may be harmful. It may affect the soil microbiome, the length of your root system. Over time, it may lead to compaction and water drainage issues. And so we're making an effort to disturb the surface as minimally as possible. The best situation would be to have a no-till drill. But here at Murray Farm and Ranch, we're a small scale operation, and I can't pay $20, $30, $40, $50,000 for a no-till drill. So hence we have the Model B, you know, $1,500 piece of equipment. And this allows me to get seed in the ground. And it was not meant to be used in the way that I use it. The Model B was originally used, I think developed to be used over a properly prepared seed bed, which would be, conventional tillage, get in there, get all the dirt turned up, get everything taken out, smoothed over, and then come back with this and lay down seed in really nice, neat 8-inch rows, spacing. Well, it's not the way I use it. I don't till first. And I'm going to show you some examples of how I've used it. And what I typically do is I will graze a place, at the end of the growing season, I'm going to graze a place down pretty low. And I've got very little surface growth of grass or weeds, whatever. And I may even come down and I may even cut that down with a brush hog and brush hog it. And now I've got very little exposure before you get to dirt. And I'll wait for a nice rainy day, where there's some moisture in the soil and the ground isn't rock hard. And then I'll come by and I'll set that thing to where it digs as deep as I can get it. And I'll drop seed down on top of the grass. And with things like cereal grains, rye grass, wheat, oats, barley, you don't have to have a ton of soil exposure. I mean, all you got to really do is just have contact, and that seed will take off. And I'll show you an example of that here in a minute on a place that I just recently did. And I did not till it beforehand. I just went back over it after the cows had got done grazing it. So this is an example of kind of the layout of how this grain drill puts in the seed. So this little green patch up here, this is just a couple of acres that I was feeding the cows cubes up here, and so they had really mowed the grass down, and they had trampled it down a lot because there was a lot of because I'd fed them cubes. And so with that grain drill, I didn't till this up or anything. I just came in, and you can see the spacing. So this is, you can see the first, drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So from here to here was one pass. And you can see how this ryegrass is coming up really nice. And so this little couple of acres, it's not a lot, but I have patches like this all over my property. And that's gonna allow for a lot of green grass this winter. And all these little places add up to make quite a bit of forage for these cows. That's less hay that I have to feed.